In 1820, a ship full of armed men hunted a whale for sport and profit. The whale found out where they slept and sank their ship on purpose. 8 men survived. They survived by eating each other. And that is not the scariest part of this story. The scariest part is what scientists confirmed just a few weeks ago in a study most people haven't even heard about yet. They finally caught, on camera, the exact weapon that sank that ship. And it turns out that weapon is even worse than anyone thought. This is the sperm whale, not a killer whale, not a great white, the actual most dangerous predator in the entire ocean. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why even orcas think twice before starting something with it. Let's start with the body count, because numbers don't lie. An adult male sperm whale can grow past 50 feet long and weigh more than 50 tons. That is heavier than 8 full-grown African elephants stacked together, moving through open water at speed. Its head alone takes up a third of its entire body length. That's not decoration. That's not just where the brain sits. That head is a weapon platform, built and loaded like a battering ram. And we are going to get into exactly why in a few minutes, because the answer is genuinely disturbing. But size alone doesn't make something terrifying. Plenty of huge animals are gentle giants. Blue whales are bigger, and they eat krill. So what actually makes the sperm whale different? What makes it the one animal in the entire ocean food chain that doesn't have to look over its shoulder? 3 things. Its sound can break things from a distance. Its body is built to survive fights. Nothing else on Earth could survive. And its brain is the single largest brain that has ever existed on this planet. Bigger than any dinosaur. Bigger than any other whale. Bigger than yours. By a wide margin. Let's go through each one, because each one gets worse. Start with the sound, because this is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Sperm whales are scientifically the loudest animals on Earth. Not the loudest whale, the loudest living thing, full stop. Louder than any lion's roar, louder than a jet engine at takeoff. Their hunting clicks have been measured at over 230 decibels underwater. To put that in perspective, the human pain threshold is around 130 decibels. A jet engine close-up gets you to maybe 150. Scientists generally agree that sustained sound, somewhere around 180 to 200 decibels, is enough to seriously injure or even kill a person by literally rupturing tissue through the sheer force of the pressure wave. A sperm whale's loudest click sits comfortably above that range. Now, water carries sound differently than air does, so the comparison isn't perfectly one-to-one. Scientists are honest about that. But even when you correct for the difference, divers who've gotten close to a clicking sperm whale describe feeling the sound hit their chest like a physical punch from yards away through solid water. Some researchers have proposed that the whale's most powerful focused clicks might be strong enough at close range to stun or disorient prey, almost like a built-in flashbang. Other researchers have tested this directly on live squid and didn't find clear evidence of stunning, so the jury is genuinely still out, and we're not going to pretend otherwise. But here's what nobody disputes. That nose-shaped structure on the front of a sperm whale's skull isn't just for echolocation. It's the single most powerful sound-generating organ that biology has ever produced. Nothing alive makes a louder, more focused noise than this animal does, and it is mostly invisible to you, traveling silently through dark water until it's aimed directly at something it wants to find. That alone would make most people nervous. But the sound is just the early warning system. The real horror is what happens when this thing actually goes to war, because sperm whales do go to war regularly with the single most dangerous invertebrate in the ocean, the giant squid, and its even bigger, even more aggressive cousin, the colossal squid. Picture this. Over a kilometer down, in complete darkness with crushing pressure that would kill a human in seconds, a sperm whale dives to hunt. It finds a giant squid, sometimes stretching longer than a school bus when you count the tentacles. The squid does not go quietly. It wraps those arms around the whale's head and face and fights for its life with everything it has. We know this happens because of the evidence left behind. Sperm whales that strand on beaches or get studied up close are frequently covered in circular scars, sometimes 4 inches across, in clusters across their heads and bodies. Those aren't birthmarks. Those are sucker scars, branded into the whale's skin by the exact same kind of grip marks giant squid used to try to tear free. Scientists examining stomach contents have pulled out giant squid beaks, the hard, indigestible part of the squid's mouth, sitting undigested inside sperm whale stomachs. The squid lost every single time. The beaks are the evidence. The whale eats the loser and keeps the scars as a trophy. Now here's the detail that should really sit with you. Giant squid and colossal squid have the largest eyes of any animal that has ever existed on this planet, bigger than a dinner plate in some specimens. For decades, scientists debated why a deep-sea animal would need eyes that enormous, when there's barely any light to see by down there at all. One leading theory, still actively discussed today, is that those eyes didn't evolve to find prey in the dark. They evolved to spot something coming, specifically to spot the one predator big enough and dangerous enough to be worth watching for, generating just enough disturbed light and bioluminescent sparkle in the water to give the squid a few extra seconds of warning. Even the deep sea's most monstrous-looking creature may have evolved its single most alien feature for one reason: trying not to get caught by this whale, so it wins against the largest, most alien predator in the deep ocean, in total darkness, under pressure that would crush a submarine hull. What else can it do? This next part is the one that turned an entire historical era of seafaring into a horror story, and it just got verified by modern science a few weeks before this video was made. On November 20th, 1820, the whaling ship Essex was sailing the South Pacific, about 2,000 miles off the coast of South America. Her crew spotted an unusually massive sperm whale bull floating motionless nearby, watching the ship. Then it started swimming toward them, slowly at first, then picking up speed, head half out of the water. The first mate, a man named Owen Chase, watched it close the distance at what he estimated as roughly 24 knots, and described it as moving with, in his words, tenfold fury and vengeance. The whale rammed the bow of the ship head-on. The impact nearly threw the entire crew off their feet. It came around and hit them again. The hull ruptured. The ship sank. 20 men were left adrift in the open Pacific in small whaleboats, thousands of miles from land. Only 8 survived, and they survived by eating the bodies of crewmates who didn't. This wasn't a myth. This wasn't exaggerated sailor talk. This is documented, recorded history, and it's the real event that inspired the novel Moby Dick. For 200 years, people argued about whether sperm whales actually do this on purpose, whether that head-first ramming was deliberate behavior or just a one-time freak accident from an angry, wounded animal. Sailors swore it was real. Scientists wanted proof. In March of 2026, they got it. Researchers from the University of St. Andrews, working with teams in the Azores and the Balearic Islands, flew drones over wild sperm whale pods for years, and they finally caught it on camera. Sperm whales head-butting each other, on purpose, full force, head-to-head, in the wild. This is the first time this behavior has ever been scientifically filmed and confirmed. And here's the twist that genuinely surprised the researchers themselves. They expected this kind of head ramming to come from massive, dominant adult males defending territory. Instead, every single whale caught doing it on camera was a young subadult. The scientists calculated the force of these impacts, and in the most forceful recorded case, the strike generated an impact comparable to roughly 200 kilonewtons of force. And that was from a young whale that hadn't even reached full adult size. Yet, scale that up to a fully grown bull moving at full speed, the size of the whale that hit the Essex, and you start to understand exactly how a wooden ship's hull stood no chance. And remember, that head isn't soft. It's built around the spermaceti organ, a massive structure once so prized that an entire global whaling industry hunted these animals nearly to extinction just to harvest the oil sitting inside their skulls. That same structure that generates the loudest sound on the planet doubles as a shock-absorbing battering ram. This animal's communication system and its weapon system are the exact same body part. Now let's talk about the only animal in the ocean that's actually willing to test that weapon, the orca. You've probably heard orcas called the apex predator of the ocean in other videos. Here's the uncomfortable truth those videos leave out. A lone orca, or even a small group, does not mess with a healthy adult sperm whale, especially not a bull. Bull sperm whales are considered too large, too powerful, and too aggressive for orcas to safely target at all. But when an orca pod is large enough, and they find a group of females with calves, they will absolutely try. Off the coast of Western Australia, in a stretch of ocean called Bremer Canyon, marine researchers have documented exactly what this fight looks like. Multiple sperm whales, including a vulnerable juvenile, get surrounded by a pod of orcas that have picked up speed and committed to the hunt. The sperm whales don't scatter and run. They do something that looks almost military. They form a tight circle called a rosette, with the most vulnerable whale protected in the dead center, and either their heads facing outward to use their jaws or their tails facing outward to use raw striking power. That tail alone on a fully grown adult is considered capable of delivering a genuinely lethal blow if it connects. During one of these documented standoffs, researchers watched a massive dark cloud erupt in the water around the huddled whales. For a moment, onlookers thought they were watching a kill happen in real time, that the dark cloud was blood. It wasn't. It was the whale's own waste, released deliberately under extreme stress, what researchers actually call defensive defecation. The whales create a cloud of waste and thrash their tails through it, turning the water murky and disorienting, making it harder for the orcas to track exactly where the vulnerable calf is inside the formation. And because their diet is almost entirely squid, that waste actually comes out reddish-brown, which is exactly why it gets mistaken for blood from the surface. In that particular standoff, the strategy worked. The orcas eventually broke off. Nobody confirmed a kill. So even the ocean's most famously ruthless hunting machine, an animal that takes down great white sharks and blue whale calves, treats the sperm whale as a fight that has to be earned in numbers, with overwhelming force. And even then, success isn't guaranteed. Here's the part that ties this whole picture together, and it's the reason this animal isn't just dangerous, it's calculating. The sperm whale brain is the largest brain that has ever existed on Earth, in any animal, living or extinct, dinosaurs included. It averages around 7 kilograms. That's roughly 5 times heavier than a human brain. Brain size alone doesn't automatically mean higher intelligence. Scientists are careful about that comparison, since elephants and dolphins also carry large brains relative to their bodies. But the structure matters here too. The part of the brain responsible for processing sound, the auditory system, is massively enlarged in this animal, built specifically to interpret an ocean of acoustic information that we can't even perceive. This is an animal built, brain and body, around sound, generating it as a weapon, receiving it as a sense that may be sharper than anything else alive, and apparently, based on that brand new headbutting research, occasionally redirecting all of that raw power into physical contests with each other that look disturbingly intentional. Put it all together, and you get an animal that has no natural predator as an adult, that can produce a sound loud enough to be measured against the threshold for physical injury, that defeats the largest invertebrate predator in the ocean in total darkness every single recorded time. That sank a wooden ship on purpose. 200 years before science could prove it, does this kind of thing deliberately. That fights off orca packs using coordinated formations and a literal smokescreen of its own waste. And that carries the largest brain ever evolved on this planet, behind eyes that have watched humanity hunt it to the edge of extinction. And somehow, this species came back from that. Every other apex predator in the ocean earns that title by being fast, or sharp-toothed, or aggressive. The sperm whale earns it by being all of those things at once, while also being smarter, louder, and more deliberate than anything else swimming beside it. The ocean isn't scared of the shark in the room. The ocean is scared of the one animal, big enough to ignore the shark entirely, loud enough to be heard from miles away, and patient enough to wait in total darkness for something far larger to come along. If this kind of deep dive into the things actually running the ocean food chain is your thing, you already know what to do. There's plenty more of these animals, worth being afraid of. And we're just getting started.